As BM was about to attack the third player of the GT Knights, the player saw him and dodged his attack. He took cover in the shadow and attacked him again from behind. The player blocked his attack. Since his opponent is a strong defender, BM went back to the shadows and thought about his next move. He remembered his training sessions with Seo Moon, where he taught him to reduce the choices for his opponents. In that way, they'll be cornered. He also gave him a short sword and a crossbow to have a better short-range fight. Seo Moon taught him to never give up. With all his courage and strength builders up, BM emerged out of the shadows and rushed towards the enemy, but fell on the way. Ashamed of his fall, BM went back to the shadows. Meanwhile, the second division of the GT Knights was defeated by the first division of the YSM, but they got surrounded by Jardins. As both BM and Soho were landing and blocking hits on each other, BM took the hit. Soho thought to himself, why has BM used his ability to dodge the attack? It may be because of a limitation. Soho attacked him with all his might, but this time BM got into the shadows. With his sword stuck into the ground, BM took the opportunity and defeated the last opponent. The match ended with a victory for the YSM, and Yoon BM was the MVP. At home, Seo Moon was getting bored as Coach Gabriel was training the team, and now he had nothing to do. We see a man standing outside of his home, smiling at it. Eric Tiram, one of the 7 heroes, the god of axe, and an ally of Seo Moon, had arrived at his door. He told Seo Moon that during his trip to France, he didn't come to meet him. Because of this, he came to meet him from the Atlantic Ocean. Eric's abilities are bad luck and survival instincts, which provide good luck and a 30% increase in strength, agility, and stamina when needed. They had dinner together, where Eric gave Seo Moon a present, a dungeon return stone, used to escape a dungeon. It has 7 uses left. Seo Moon was surprised to see this, and thought to himself that with this stone, he could go back to that place. 2 days have passed. Eric tried to convince Seo Moon to come with him, but he refused, and he asked him to take his wife on vacation with him. They said their goodbyes, and Eric left for France. Seo Moon also packed his bags and told his brother that he'll be back in 4 days as he was going on a short vacation. He put on his helmet and, on his bike, left for Gangwon-do, a hilly area full of greenery where no one comes. Seo Moon used the dungeon stone to go back to the place where he had hidden various valuable items like gems, monster furs, special minerals, etc. He used the stone to reach a cave covered by a huge rock. He pushed the rock aside and used the pink aura to go inside the dungeon, which he had cleared but not destroyed. Inside the dungeon, he felt very alive, remembering his old times. A dungeon is a place where he belongs. It's the only thing that interests him. As he was roaming around, he sensed a presence. He was sure that no one had entered it, but still, there was someone. It must be an underworlder. He charged his spear and challenged him to come out. Seo Moon felt a strong evil presence in one of the rooms of this dungeon. There was a bridge between them, which he crossed. 17 years ago, he cleared this dungeon and let its core remain active to use it as his own personal space. As he was halfway through the bridge, he got attacked by a giant Zardan. Zardans are reared by the underworlders to consume their mana. Zardans grow from Zardan seeds, and they can eat everything they can. Seo Moon attacked Zardan with his amplified throw. He called back his spear and finished off the Zardan. He was hoping for some underworlders to appear, but it didn't happen. 1 hour later, Seo Moon had cleared every Zardan seed but one. He kept it in a bottle for himself. The Zardan had eaten everything that Seo Moon had kept inside the dungeon. He visited a sealed room with the dungeon's core and magic stones. He unsealed the room and opened the door. Everything except the core has vanished. Seo Moon was certain that no Zardan could enter the sealed room. It may be because of underworlders who took everything with them. On the ground, Seo Moon saw one of his new spears, which he had thrown at the underworlder in Paris. Now he's certain that underworlders are using this place. Just then, he sensed a heavy aura behind him. He turned and laughed in happiness as he saw one of the stronger underworlders coming towards him. The underworlder with a dense red aura was coming towards him. According to the battlefield reference system, the red aura belongs to the class 3 underworlders, which are not weak. He said something in his language. Seo Moon knew that the underworlders had extreme learning capacity and could learn an entire language with just a small conversation. Seo Moon told him to talk. He asked Seo Moon if he was alone and despised him by calling it a slave's language and humans a lowly species. Seo Moon provoked him and threw his spear at him. He survived the attack but is now very curious, as Seo Moon was disrespecting their holy site. He used the power of the Great Snake and attacked Seo Moon. Seo Moon dodged the attack by amplifying his agility stat. Their battle, along with the provocations, continued until Seo Moon told him about himself. This underworlder knew about Seo Moon as the bane of their existence. He gathered all his power and attacked Seo Moon with his snakes. Seo Moon dodged and counterattacked against him. He pinned him using his spear. Seo Moon knew that he wasn't dead yet, as underworlders can use their auras to extend their lives. After provoking him again, Seo Moon used his eyes of analysis, his stats were above average, and he belonged to the searcher class. Their job is to search for ore deposits. Seo Moon asked him if there were more remnants of his species. He told him about a prophecy by which they'll rise, again following the lead of a prophet who'll lead them to the holy light. After saying this, he self-destructed, causing a massive explosion. Seo Moon survived the explosion by amplifying immortality and going into aura mode. According to the researchers, the final dungeon was created over 10,000 years ago, where the underworlders gathered the aura collected from all over the world. They couldn't handle that much aura and ended up making the decision to conquer the world, where the end of their civilization occurred. Seo Moon came out of the dungeon with a sad face, as he had nothing to do there. As soon as he came out, we saw the precipice of the dungeon turning red, where the third lord of the underworlders was standing in disappointment, not because he lost a searcher, but because he lost the Zardan. The scene shifts to Seo Moon at his home, showing his brother the Zardan he caught in the bottle. He said that it was very dangerous to keep it alive. If it gets free, it can devour an entire city. Seo Moon told him that he'd trade it off to the organization that does research on the underworld to help them in their research. His brother told him about the World Battlefield Association, where he can sell the Zardan. The scene shifts to the second match of Battlefield Season 2, where the match between YS-Man JS Steel is going on. Lee Na-yeon is the highlight of this match because of her gameplay and her charm. She had become the French star of the YSM. On the other hand, Yoon BM is executing his stealth gameplay and taking the kills. The other members were also playing their roles accordingly. The conclusion came to YSM as the victors of the second match. With this, they have entered the postseason. The national coach came to Seo Moon, congratulating him for reaching the postseason. He also told him about the Zardan seed that Seo Moon gave him. He had sent it to the association for research. B warned him about the postseason matches, but Seo Moon was confident in his team, and by the look of his confidence, the national coach asked him if he had something else under his sleeve, as most of his tactics have been shown in the last two matches. Meanwhile, Coach Gabriel was getting interviewed. He was asked about the preparations for the postseason. He replied that they'd easily win this league as he had made a deal with Seo Moon, the owner of the YSM. He told the reporter about the deal. Everyone, including the national coach, was shocked to know that Seo Moon will be playing with the YSM team in their matches per year. Coach Gabriel introduced Seo Moon as a player on the team, as he will be playing the next match with them. Their next match will be against Incheon BC. This team had been losing against the YSM's check strategy. For this season, they've recruited a new player, Han Sung-yeep. An average player has tracking ability, through which he can track the movements of 5 living targets. His sole purpose is the defeat of the YSM. The team continued to make plans and strategies. One player asked why Seo Moon was taking part in this match, as they could use him against a tougher team. Coach Gabriel told him that Seo Moon himself would be out for this match. With global media and social media channels, people are getting excited for Seo Moon's return as a battlefield player. He is the strongest superhuman in the world, and watching him play against a Tier 2 team will not satisfy the audience. Every type of rumor was spread before the match against Incheon BC started. When the match day arrived, the stadium was full to its limit. Everyone was cheering. The lineups were made. Seo Moon used his eye for analysis to check the opponent's abilities. He found Han. He met him and asked him if he had chosen his targets for tracking and if he was included. Han said yes, and Seo Moon said that he was his target, which made him afraid. The first match of the postseason between the YSM and Incheon BC began at Wizard Canyon. The first division of the YSM with 6 players is headed toward the enemy team, but they know their positioning using Han's tracking ability. Incheon BC knew that they were at a great disadvantage, because Seo Moon was playing with the YSM, which is why they made some changes by putting more ranged dealers on their team. Their plan was to take the checking team of the YSM and avoid Seo Moon as much as possible. As their first division was going to take on the checking team of the YSM, the captain of the Incheon BC saw a spear pass from his side, killing Han Sung-yeep. It was thrown by Seo Moon using the vision relay ability of Jo Sung-go, from where he got the aim. Seo Moon-yeep killed Han. This made the captain of the second team astonished, as he hadn't moved from his spawn position. Everyone in the opposition was shocked as he threw another spear and killed the second member of the team. They were trying to look for a location, but another Specs came flying and killed the captain as well. Seo Moon was throwing these spears from his spawning position. He was using the relay vision ability of his teammate, and with his help, Seo Moon was able to kill 3 members of the enemy team. We see a flashback. A few days before the match, Seo Moon was practicing with Sung-go to get long-range hits with his vision relay ability. Sung-go needed a pair of binoculars to have an exact aim at the target, and since Seo Moon can control the speed and trajectory of his spears, it is possible for them to get hit from his distance. After a few tries, Seo Moon hit the target, and with practice, he became used to it. Calculating the wind speed, the position of his opponents, his own spawning position, he can easily kill the targets using relay vision. The opponents, referee, commentators, coaches, and audience were shocked as Seo Moon had just obtained 3 kills without even moving from his spawn point. Baek Jae-ho was criticized when, in an interview, he said that Seo Moon had killed monsters from 2 kilometers away. People were addressing him as a liar because of this statement. There were many other unbelievable statements made by Jae-ho in his book, The Savior of the World, Seo Moon Yeep. According to the readers, this book was filled with lies and exaggerations. Because of all these points, this book was deemed fictitious. This book was considered a story made by Baek Jae-ho, but only he knows that everything written in the book is true, even though it sounds impossible. Everything was seen by Jae-ho with his own eyes. There's one confusion Jae-ho was facing. He was confused if Seo Moon was able to call back his spears before as he is doing it now. Meanwhile, the second team of the Incheon BC knew that Seo Moon was attacking from far away. Their plan is to maintain the distance between them, as they are hunting a dragon right now. Seo Moon threw 3 of his spears at the dragon that the second team was hunting, killing it and claiming the points for the YSM. Seo Moon called Yoon Beom and threw more spears at the enemy team, but this time they didn't hit. But Seo Moon had another plan in mind. He told Beom to hide under the shadow of his spear and kill the remaining players of Incheon from their side. Beom emerged from the shadows, taking a kill on the player that just survived the spear thrown by Seo Moon. The match ended with a perfect victory for the YSM. With 4 kills and 7 assists, Seo Moon was the MVP of the match. After the match ended, Coach Gabriel told him that the audience went crazy for his performance. Seo Moon told him that the next match is going to be tough as it is taking place in the dungeon called the Thousand Bridges. This dungeon is also called the Newbie Killer as it has thousands of bridges inside a huge tower connected to its center, where the main challenge is to know which bridge is real and which is fake. The damaged bridges are also a big problem, as they break by just a single step. Even the pro players have a hard time competing in this dungeon. The match started with YSM killing the Arachne, giant spider monsters, but there is also a bigger threat than the Arachne, the ghost spiders. These giant spiders catch their prey in a web and build a cocoon around them, turning them into zombies. The YSM was facing around 50 arachnids and 8 ghost spiders. With 8 spears in his hand, Seo Moon told his team to take care of the zombies as he was going all out on the spiders. He amplified his throw and killed all the monsters in the area in a few minutes. Everyone was amazed that he had cleared the hunt himself. Seo Moon asked Sungo to give him some aura using his relay aura ability. As they were done, they realized that they were surrounded by the enemy team. Seo Moon called his spears back with the same force he threw them, causing them to break the platform they and the enemy team were standing on. Before the match began, he told everyone about the location they'd be playing on, as all he knew about the bridges under the platform. His plan is to make the players of YSM land on the real bridges while killing the enemy players before they reach the ground. According to his calculations, he would get 6 kills from this plan. Things went according to his plan as all the players of YSM and the Incheon BC were falling. Seo Moon took his sword and started killing the opponents. One after another, Seo Moon did what he said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. He took 6 kills, wiping more than half of the enemy team himself. On reaching the ground, Seo Moon saw that 5 players from the Incheon BC were still alive. They started attacking him. Dodging their attacks, Seo Moon killed more of their players. 7 kills, 8 kills. Using his saber and acrobatic skills, Seo Moon took 11 kills. Wiping the whole team by himself, he had recorded an all-kill by himself in an official match. The crowd went crazy, cheering for Seo Moon. It was the very first recorded all-kill in the history of the battlefield. Coach Gabriel told Seo Moon to sit out for the 3rd match as Incheon BC would take some time to recover from the trauma that he had just put them through, and he also wanted to introduce some less used players to the battle. Once again, the results of the 3rd match came in favor of the YSM, with Choi Hyuk as the MVP of the match with 3 kills and 3 assists. The first matchup of the postseason was won by the YSM. The second match of the postseason, YSM against the SP, began and ended without anyone knowing anything because of Seo Moon's monstrous gameplay. The results came out as 3 kills and 7 assists for the first round, 8 kills and 2 assists for the second round. With that, the second match of the postseason was won by the YSM. At the Paris Lumiere Club, the Moro brothers were trying to find new ways to market Seo Moon. They wanted the long-range spear play to be a trademark of Seo Moon. Also, they wanted him to play in the Paris Lumiere uniform. They're ready to bet everything they have on Seo Moon in the winter trade market. The scene shifts to Berlin, Germany, where the owner of the Berlin Blitz, John Behrman, is having a conversation with the coach of the Berlin Blitz, Emre Klaas, who is showing interest in scouting Seo Moon Yeep for his team. At the beginning of the chapter, we're introduced to the top 3 teams in this world. In the first place, we have the Paris Lumiere, managed by the Moro brothers, with Nathan Bernard and Chich Lucas as its star players. This team stands atop every other team in the world. On the second, we have the New York Bears with Gerard Walker as their center. And lastly, for the third position, we have the Berlin Blitz with Emre Casa, one of the 7 heroes, as their coach. The Berlin Blitz and the Paris Lumiere have had a deep history of rivalry since the beginning of Battlefield. Emre Casa is having a conversation with the owner of the Berlin Blitz about scouting Seo Moon for his team. Even though Behrman, the owner of Berlin Blitz, wanted to support his decision, he knew that Seo Moon would never agree to this, as he had an infamous rivalry with coach Emre Casa when they were fighting alongside each other 17 years ago. We see a flashback of Seo Moon and Casa having a fight. Their opinions were colliding with each other. Seo Moon was in favor of clearing out the dungeon, while Casa didn't want to do that as it was a suicide mission, according to him. Coming back to the scene, Casa somehow managed to make Berman agree to let him scout Seo Moon. He asked, "How much money do you need?" Casa said 180 million would be enough for him to outbid the Moro brothers. Meanwhile, the last match of the postseason was going on between YSM and the Ocean Empire. It was obvious which team was going to win as Seo Moon was playing with the YSM. The first round was won by YSM. Coach Gabriel asked Seo Moon to sit out for the next matches as the new players would get some experience from them. Seo Moon agreed to it. His strategy was to switch the main tank with the secondary one. Choi Hyuk will be promoted to the first team as he had a chance to make it to the national team. This will give Hyuk the chance to express himself fully. They were both strategizing for the other players, and with Coach Gabriel's experience and Seo Moon's eyes of analysis, they put together a formation that would be the strongest one they could have. The main coach of the YSM came and told Seo Moon that many trade offers were coming from the international teams for his recruitment. They're offering 100 million euros at the minimum. Seo Moon said that he'd prefer to stay and make the YSM a global team. Coach Gabriel said that it'll not be possible for him to carry the whole team by himself on the global level. Even if they try to recruit some foreign players, it will be no good as the management of those players will outbudget them as they don't have any high-income sources. If they trade him off, they can have some top-class facilities for the team with the money they'll get. This will also help them manage the new players they'll buy from foreign countries. The matches between YSM and the Ocean Empire started and ended with the Ocean Empire emerging as the victors. Since they're a Tier 1 team that got demoted, they still have a lot of experience as compared to the YSM, which was placed last in the previous year's Tier 2 matches. The result of the final match of the postseason came out. YSM won. After the postseason ended, YSM had sold out 4 of his players, and now they're in search of new ones. They need a ranged damage dealer. Seo Moon had already prepared a list of the players he wanted to scout for the YSM. He showed the list to the coaches, which surprised them, as there were some players that the coaches thought it was not possible to recruit. Seo Moon, on his bike, was thinking about what he had to do as the thought of joining the Paris Lumiere was bugging him. But before this, he wanted to collect the players that he had handpicked on his list to fulfill the requirements that Coach Gabriel had. Seo Moon went to Seonghun High to recruit Kim Hyun-tae, but the management told him that Kim had already been recruited by the Twin Star Spirits. Then he asked for a kid named Lee Dae-young, but he had already retired because of some family issues. As Seo Moon was leaving, the coach told him about a graduate student named Park Min-young. He hadn't joined any team because he was confused about his life. At the request of the coach, Seo Moon agreed to take a look at the student he mentioned. In high school, he played as a close-range dealer. This fact interested Seo Moon in the kid. At Gangnam Cyber Cafe, Min-young was sitting with his friend, who started bullying the manager of that place. He somehow managed to get out of the situation. Seo Moon arrived and asked him about Min-young. Seo Moon, who was wearing a helmet, went to his table and started the conversation. When the bully interrupted, he threw a stone at his face and made him unconscious. One of his friends hit Seo Moon on the helmet with a keyboard. Seo Moon punched him back, calling it a self-defense move. 2 of his friends rushed in, but he dodged their attack and counterattacked them. Seo Moon removed his helmet and asked Min-young to have a chat with him, but behind them was a girl who was live-streaming all this. She told everyone that the person beating the kids was Seo Moon. The chapter starts with the kids kneeling before Seo Moon, asking for forgiveness. Seo Moon beat them again and told them to get out. He then asked young men why he was smoking in a non-smoking area. He said sorry, but Seo Moon punched him in the gut. Young men asked him if the coach had sent him. He told Seo Moon that he'll not be playing Battlefield anymore and that he is wasting his time trying to get him for his team. Seo Moon asked him to have a peaceful chat, but he told him to go away. Seo Moon went furious and gut-punched him again. Young man became unconscious. While taking him away, Seo Moon saw the girl who was live streaming. He asked her to delete the photos, but she told him that they were going live. She told him that it was a mission to live stream the bullies in the cyber cafe. This mission will give her 10,000 stars, which is equivalent to 700,000 euros. She got 2 10,000-star gifts from the chats, which made her super happy, but then her Steam ended. She got a call from the website manager saying that she'd been banned from streaming for 3 months because her current stream was too violent. Seo Moon took the call from her and asked if teaching a lesson to the bullies was too violent. He asked the manager's name and told him that he'd come to pay him a visit. The manager said that it was a mistake on their part and they'd unban her. She was unbanned and continued the stream. Everyone on the stream was happy. Seo Moon asked her to end the stream. She ended the stream and thanked him for helping her. Seo Moon asked her to come to YSM for a stream, and from that time on, he got the hobby of watching streams. Seo Moon asked Young Min why he didn't want to be a battlefield player. He said that he and his mother earn the money with which he takes care of his grandparents. His father drinks and gambles. Seo Moon told him to become a pro on the battlefield, that way he could help out his family. Young Min agreed to join, but on a condition. He wanted Seo Moon to teach a lesson to his father, just like he taught him. Seo Moon went to meet Kim Jin-soo, a player with regeneration and sacrifice as his superpowers. His stats were pretty high. He can play the role of fast tank that Coach Gabriel wants. He signed his contract with the YSM and was pretty happy about it. Seo Moon went to a billiards club and asked about Youngmin's father. He congratulated him on his son's becoming a prominent battlefield player. Seo Moon said that he's here to fulfill a wish his son had. He took out a bottle of beer and started beating him. He asked the other people if they wanted a lesson or not, and they all fled from the scene. He started beating him again. Seo Moon took him to his home and told everyone that Park Young will never drink again, and if he does, they should just call him. He told Young Min to come to the YSM clubhouse tomorrow to sign the contract. The scene shifts to a bar where a close-range dealer named Shin Young-soo is angry at his team. While on his way to the washroom, he bumped into Seo Moon. He cursed him, and Seo Moon took that personally. He punched him in the face. When his friends arrived, he told them that he was taking Young-soo with him. While Seo Moon was creating the list of players, he got a call from the vice president of the Korean Battlefield Association. He told him about his son, Shin Young-soo, and his behavior with his teammates, which led him to leave the national team. When Young-soo regained consciousness, Seo Moon told him that he was giving him the chance of his life, and if he refused, his career as a pro battlefield player would be over since his reputation in the media was not good either. Seo Moon hit him and told him that all the situations he was facing are because of his negative mentality. He asked him to join the YSM, and if he doesn't, news articles will be published saying that Young-soo picked up a fight with Seo Moon, and because of all the hate comments he'll get, no other team will accept him. The only way to improve his public image is to get closer to Seo Moon. Seo Moon asked him if he had won any major league games before, and the answer came out to be no. Seo Moon told him that if he joined the YSM, every unwon match would become a win. He passed his business card and said that he had only 1 day to respond. Young-soo went to his father and told him everything. His father told him to join the YSM, as Seo Moon Yeep is the real deal, and Gabriel Sana is their coach, making the YSM the perfect place for him to go. Also, Seo Moon has raised many superhumans across the world. He had the experience required to deal with different individuals. The next day, at the Future Hypers clubhouse, Seo Moon asked the team leader of the Future Hypers to sell him Shin Young-soo for 10 billion won.